At 30,000 feet above the North Atlantic, calm turns to chaos in less than 10 seconds. A piercing alarm breaks the silence. The cockpit fills with red light. Warning indicators flash across every panel: hydraulic pressure low, autopilot disengaged. And in the captain's seat, there is no one. First Officer Ryan Porter sits frozen, hand on the controls, his heart pounding against his ribs like a trapped animal. The headset crackles. "North Atlantic 327, do you copy?" He opens his mouth, but his voice comes out as a whisper. Then steadier: "Mayday, mayday. Flight 327 declaring an emergency. The captain is unconscious. I am the only pilot remaining." Outside, the night sky is endless and black, carved by streaks of lightning that dance along the horizon. Below, nothing but water. Thousands of miles of open Atlantic, cold, dark, merciless. The hum of the engine sounds like a heartbeat on the edge of panic. Inside the cabin, passengers cry out. Oxygen masks drop from the ceiling. A child screams for his mother. And in that moment, Ryan Porter becomes the only thing standing between 176 lives and the ocean waiting below. It began like any other transatlantic flight. North Atlantic Airways Flight 327 lifted off from Toronto just after dusk, its engines humming with quiet confidence. Destination: Lisbon. Flight time: 8 hours, 10 minutes. The aircraft: an Airbus A330, reliable, steady, built to endure whatever the sky can offer. At the controls sat Captain Daniel Mercer, 51, a veteran with over 20 years in the skies. Calm, methodical, known for his precision. Beside him, First Officer Ryan Porter, 32, meticulous and sharp, one of the airline's rising stars. The two men shared the cockpit like clockwork: small talk, system checks, notes scribbled in silence. The climb was smooth. The sunset faded into a dark indigo sky scattered with stars. Below them, the last threads of the Canadian coastline vanished into the Atlantic night. For the passengers, it was a dreamlike calm. Dinner trays clinked softly. Screens flickered with quiet movies. A baby cried once, then slept. The hum of engines lulled the cabin into a steady rhythm of peace. Nothing seemed unusual. Not yet. At 11:37 p.m., Captain Mercer unbuckled his seatbelt. He rubbed his temples, smiled faintly, and said, "I'll stretch my legs for a minute. Keep her steady." Ryan nodded, eyes still on the navigation display. The door closed behind Mercer with a soft click. Minutes passed, then 10, then 20. Ryan glanced at the empty seat beside him. He keyed the interphone. "Flight deck to cabin, has the captain come through?" Static. Then the voice of a flight attendant, calm but uncertain. "He went into the rear lavatory a few minutes ago, sir. Should I check?" "Yes, please." 30 seconds later, that calm vanished. The attendant's voice came back, sharp, trembling. "Sir, he's not answering. The door's locked." Ryan felt a pulse of unease tighten in his chest. "Try again." Then came the sound that would haunt the entire crew for years, a heavy thud. Then silence. The door was forced open. Mercer lay motionless on the floor, his skin pale, his breathing shallow, his pulse barely there. At 30,000 feet, with no doctor on board, death becomes a matter of altitude and timing. The cabin crew began CPR. The doctor who volunteered, a cardiologist on vacation, took over within moments. Compressions echoed through the aisle. The passengers fell silent, watching the nightmare unfold in real time. Ryan's training kicked in. He locked the cockpit door, engaged autopilot, and reached for the radio. His voice was steady but low. "Lisbon Center, this is North Atlantic 327. Captain incapacitated. I'm the sole pilot on board." The reply came through in calm tones. 327, roger. Continue current heading. Nearest airport is Shannon, Ireland, 1 hour 45 minutes away. Ryan looked down at the NAV screen. Over 1,000 kilometers of open water lay between him and safety. The turbulence began 30 minutes later. No warning. No pattern. Just chaos. The aircraft jolted violently, coffee spilling across the center console. Ryan disengaged the autopilot and took manual control. The horizon vanished in darkness. Thunder rolled like cannon fire beyond the glass. Lightning split the sky in electric veins. He gritted his teeth, forcing his voice steady as he called ATC again. "Lisbon, we're encountering severe turbulence. Descending to stabilize." The response was faint through the static. "Copy that, 327. Maintain present heading." "You're not alone out there." But Ryan was alone. Completely. Behind him, the cardiologist still worked over the captain's body. Each compression grew slower, weaker, until finally, silence. The doctor sat back, shaking his head. "There's nothing more we can do." Ryan closed his eyes. Just for a moment. He had to choose between grief and focus. He chose focus. The storm intensified. Rain lashed the windshield in sheets streaked with lightning. The A330 trembled under the strain. Warning lights blinked red across the display. Altitude variance, fuel imbalance, hydraulic fluctuation. Every alert screamed for attention. But Ryan moved like a machine. Calm, efficient, controlled. He reduced thrust, adjusted trim, cross-checked instruments. Somehow, amidst the storm, he found rhythm. For hours, the Atlantic roared beneath him. He thought of the people behind him, the children asleep, the mother clutching her baby, the man who had offered his coat to a stranger. He thought of Mercer, his calm voice, his quiet confidence. And he swore he wouldn't let the sky take him too. When Ireland's coastline finally appeared on radar, it felt like a miracle. Shannon Control came online. 327, you are cleared for emergency landing, runway 24. Weather moderate to severe, crosswind 25 knots. Ryan exhaled slowly. Copy, Shannon. He disengaged autopilot. Every decision from here had to be his. At 3,000 feet, the storm returned with vengeance. The wind slammed against the fuselage, tossing the aircraft sideways. The rain blurred the windshield into streaks of chaos. The runway lights flickered like distant stars through fog. "Come on," he whispered, hands locked on the controls. "Hold together." The descent was brutal. Altitude warnings blared. He adjusted pitch, throttle, flaps. Everything screamed too fast, too heavy, too late. At 200 feet, the crosswind hit hardest, a gust so violent it nearly rolled the plane. Ryan fought the yoke with every ounce of strength left in his arms. And then, impact. The wheels struck the runway with a bone-rattling crash. The cabin erupted in gasps. Sparks trailed behind the landing gear. But the jet held. Reverse thrust engaged. The aircraft slowed. And after what felt like forever, silence. Then applause. Laughter through tears. A collective release of breath. Ryan dropped his head forward, trembling. Flight 327 had survived. But Captain Mercer had not. In the days that followed, investigators from the European Aviation Safety Agency arrived. They combed through logs, flight data, and the cockpit voice recorder. The cause of Mercer's death, a massive pulmonary embolism, sudden, catastrophic, impossible to predict. But one detail stood out. During the height of the storm, Ryan had overridden a pressure control setting, manually adjusting the cabin altitude hold. It wasn't part of protocol. It wasn't in the checklist. But that single instinctive move prevented an autopilot disengagement that could have sent the plane into a stall. Had he not done it, Flight 327 might have vanished into the Atlantic that night. One investigator said quietly, "Instinct saved them all." The media called him the miracle pilot. But Ryan avoided interviews. He declined documentaries, refused awards, attended Mercer's funeral in silence. When asked what he remembered most, he said, "We trained for mechanical failure, not for human loss." Months later, Ryan returned to flying. A new policy had been passed. Every long-haul flight must carry a third pilot. It was called the Mercer Rule. But something else lingered. Something that didn't appear in any official report. A year later, an aircraft following the same route, Toronto to Lisbon, reported strange interference on the radio. A faint whisper beneath the static. Not a word. A command. Proceed. The crew thought it was a glitch. Until the same transmission appeared on two other flights crossing the same air corridor. Different aircraft. Different nights. Always the same voice. Always the same word. And when investigators traced the signal, its source appeared impossible. It came from the last known coordinates of Flight 327's emergency distress call. The same point over the North Atlantic, where Captain Mercer's heart stopped beating. To find out about what happened next, stick here for the second part of this intriguing event.